Here we go.
Do it.
Okay, cool.
Here we go.
Hello, coffiners! Welcome back to another episode of Coffin Talkin', where we unravel the mysteries, embrace the peculiar, and find humor in the unconventional world of funerals and death. We are joined today by Frank, of course. We've invited him back. And by Scott.
Hi, Scott.
Hello. Yeah, I heard in the last episode that I was on a trial. I've been on a trial period this whole time. So I'm glad that my free trial hasn't expired yet. Wow.
Did you hear the last comment Holly made to me?
I don't know.
I hope maybe we'll invite you back next week. What?
Yes.
And you're both here. I don't see what the problem is.
Okay.
Oh,
all right.
Yeah, the other podcast I had tonight that ended up falling through. So.
Oh, okay. You've graced us.
Oh boy.
Oh, Scott, it's so good to see you. I feel like I'm contractually obligated not to talk to you in between phone and funerals. So it feels more authentic.
Yeah, you've certainly held to that.
I'm not upset. Don't ask me about it.
Yeah. Angry was the last one.
Yeah, the anger.
Don't be angry, Holly. Don't be angry.
Oh, I'll do my best.
That was a good one.
You thought that was a good one?
Crazy.
I thought it was. Yeah, listening to that. And I have successfully, I think I told you guys, but I've successfully converted 2 of my coworkers.
Yeah, they're coffiners now?
They're coffiners. One of them, they both listened to the first one, and then another listened to the first 4 during work today.
Wow.
They binged
They
it.
have it. Yeah.
Hold it. While they were working, did the one listening to the 4 episodes, was it a male or female?
Female.
Did she scream at all during work?
Oh yeah. You know what?
Because I think there were a couple of
now.
I think there were a couple of screen points in a couple of those earlier episodes.
Yes.
Also, I resent that because I will say I'm going to get burned for this, but my other brother, he's a screamer. So not just women. Give a shout out to Lee.
There you go.
Oh, Lee.
It was fun though, because one of the coworkers is in the office that I work in, and I could I knew that she was listening, and I could hear her just all these like small gasps and small comments that she would make as well. And I thought, this is cool. She's enjoying it. Yeah, so that's pretty cool.
Good. That makes me happy.
It seems like she stopped right before she got to the first episode you were on. Was that on purpose, or?
It was. Yeah, I told her specifically which ones I was in, and she said, "Okay, great. I'll be skipping those."
Hold it. You said phone a funeral. What are you doing in episode 7? Oh man.
So Scott, how's your week? Give us a life update actually for the coffiners.
Yeah, I was thinking about it today because I knew that you would ask me that, and I'm actually very excited for summer.
It's here.
I know, all the water activities. And I mean, it's very hot where we are, but I'm excited to float the river and do swimming and things.
Yes.
I'm just very excited about that. Otherwise, work is pretty good. I had a client that asked me for some things that were different enough to disrupt my usual routine, which is actually kind of nice.
Were they illegal?
Did you both just ask if it was illegal?
Was it illegal?
Oh my goodness.
And do you want to mention the name of the client?
Well, no, because it was illegal and I did do it. So.
Oh, that's funny.
Oh, but you had a nice bonus coming your way, though. off the books.
Oh boy.
Oh my. That is hilarious. Both of you went there. Yeah.
Mhm.
Dad,
I'm
how
not
was
going to
your
answer.
week? Oh.
Okay, yeah, go on.
It wasn't illegal, or it was.
I'll
No,
let
that's
you
client.
decide.
That's client privilege.
That's right.
Oh,
Oh, Holly. Oh,
I think that's HIPAA or something. I can't.
yeah. When it's
talk
HIPAA,
about it.
HIPAA.
it's medical, but that's okay.
That shows how little we know about accounting practices. Everything that is different is now illegal.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Hold it. It pulled you from your normal routine. What?
Yeah.
Sounds suspicious.
All right, whatever.
Okay.
Yeah, but Dad, how's your week?
I've been good. We talked about it a little bit last episode, and this one's right on the heels of the last one. So not much has changed. I'm still trying to stay ahead of it. That's all. You know, without going into a lot of detail because, don't want to get mired down in the detail.
Because it's also illegal.
You and Holly automatically go to there? What's going on? No, it's not illegal.
Oh,
It's just time consuming. It's very weighty. So Scott did help me with case last week, which I'm truly grateful for. We mentioned that a little bit in the last podcast, but say it again right here with him present. Thank you. It was a big help. So thank you.
that did make me smile when I heard that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, kind of a touching moment
Yeah.
for our listeners.
Yeah.
There you have
Yeah.
it.
Made you smile, and then you heard that you might not be invited back. So
Yeah, that was it. That was the one.
kind of a bittersweet sort of thing.
Oh boy, you guys. All right, Holly, what about you?
It's been good. I was also trying to think of what I could say, but I guess everyone has to know our shame.
Maybe.
Maybe. In that we did happen to have another cat now.
Oh, that's right.
That's why I said maybe.
Yes, we named her Maybe because we're technically fostering her. So we went to an animal shelter because we volunteer there sometimes to walk dogs. And now that we have a cat, we had to go see the cats. And there was this room full of kittens. And all the kittens had friends. They all had siblings in with them, except for this one little cat. And the lady at the shelter said all her siblings died, and she's probably going to die too because of a failure to thrive. And she said, so we're hoping someone will foster her. And Kate and I looked at each other and we said, we'll do it. And then we proceeded not to tell either of the families about it for as long as we could manage because we were so ashamed that now we have 2 cats.
Are you going to keep maybe?
Yeah, probably.
Okay.
In fact, Caden's dad said, why don't you just change her name to Sure Thing? Because you're definitely keeping her.
Well, I want coffiners to know that a legitimate cause of death is failure to thrive. So that appears on death certificates. You said that the cat may die because of failure to thrive. That is a legitimate cause of death that doctors will place on death certificates as well for humans.
Oh, wow. So it's not an excuse.
It's not an excuse.
We saved her life. Maybe.
Maybe. Oh, come on. It's a sure thing.
It's a sure thing. But I don't want to talk about it anymore because we're still ashamed.
Oh, the question is Nelson used to her?
Oh my gosh. He was so mad the first couple days. We would enter the room and he would hiss at us because we had brought a new cat into the house. He was so mad. But now they take naps together. They play all the time. They share food. So they're just buddies right now.
That's cool.
We're hoping that they continue to be friends Because that's really the only thing that would keep us from keeping her, is if they don't get along, and if he is a threat to her, then we're not going to keep her.
But as of right now, it all looks good.
It all looks good right now. She's getting her second round of shots this week, and then in 2 weeks she'll be spayed. And then we'll have to
decide
change her name. Yeah, sure thing.
Oh boy! Way to go, Clinton's dad or Caden's dad.
Caden's dad.
Clinton.
Okay.
Just for good measure.
Yeah.
But that covers it. So let's be Skrank.
Oh man, you know what? That's almost going to grow on me, I think.
Oh, good.
Oh, it's growing. Look,
it's sticking. So
maybe. We'll see if that changes to a sure thing.
It has to be a sure thing because it's now been imprinted on a shirt.
Are you serious?
Let's be Skrank.
Really?
In honor of Scott. Yeah.
Oh my. Well, okay, I think I'll get one of those.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Coffin talking. Let's be Skrank. There you go. And oh my gosh. Those are the two right now that, yeah.
That's so good. We're going to jump right in. We have plenty of questions. We're not going to get through all of them today, so we're going to save these even for the next time, just because I feel like there's probably 17. But first one from Tyler. This is a great one. I laughed out loud when I read this. Can a person be buried vertically? I think it's a great question. And I will say this. I did not give any of these questions to Frank beforehand, so he is going to be shooting from the hip on these. Can a person be buried vertically?
Okay. So I'm just going to say it this way. I don't see why you couldn't be buried vertically. I don't think it ever happens, but there's really I don't think there's any reason why you couldn't if you wanted to be. Now, do you guys know the history of being when you're buried? Which side does your head go on? If you're on the east or west side, which side is the head?
What?
Yeah, there is a proper way of burying an individual. So since you bring up the can a person be buried vertically, this is the only reason why I can think is religious aspects as to why it would not happen. So you have when you have a grave that's running east and west, most people are religious, and so they think of the resurrection and what direction do they believe Christ is coming from?
The east?
Right. And so you want the head on the west side so that when they are resurrected, they rise facing Christ.
Oh.
So that's if the normal way, the head is always on the west end of the grave, unless it's north and south, and then it's on the north. But if it's east and west, head's always on the west side so that as they resurrect, they face the east. So that's the religious aspect. When you are buried, the question being buried vertically, yeah, I don't know why not, Tyler. I mean, it could. Why not? Why not? I mean, the only thing that if you're burying vertically, the grave would have to be dug deeper.
Yeah.
So that would be the only drawback. I mean, once you're in a casket, you could have the casket stand on end. You would slough down just a little bit. Your knees would bend because of the weight. But I don't know why you couldn't. I don't think it's ever been done, but I don't know why you couldn't if you wanted to. Thanks for that question.
Tyler can be the first.
Tyler can be the first.
Well, but
put it in the wheel, Tyler. Put it in the wheel.
Put it in the wheel. A follow-up to that, would you just have to slide the casket in? Because I imagine it would just be a narrow column down. So you couldn't lower it?
No, it would have to be lowered.
A crane or something?
Either a crane, or you would just let the foot end tip into the open grave, and then you would just physically push the casket up. So now we all know about open grave sites, and so you want to be kind of careful around them.
Yes, we do.
Yeah, you especially.
Oh, what do you mean by that, Holly?
I think it's pretty clear.
Okay. Anyway, thanks, Tyler. Thanks for that. I hope that answers your question. So I don't really know of anything legally that would stop you from being able to. So yeah, do it. If you
So
want to
just
do it.
an immediate reaction question that I had to that is that then is that standardized across cemeteries, the East and West thing, even if it's not necessarily religious? Because I had no idea. So is that just standard practice?
That is standard practice.
Wow.
Yep. Even if you're Jewish, if you're Hindu, it doesn't matter. If you're Buddhist, the head will always be to the west end.
Wow. That's pretty cool. I like that. Okay, let's see. We're going to jump to one from Annie. She asks, did you ever go, you as in you, Frank, did you ever go to your children's career days at school?
Well, did I? Do you guys remember me ever going to them?
I remember a comment that I made to my third grade class that my teacher then told me about. I think it was in Target when I saw her years later.
Mm-hmm.
So I can mention that one, but I don't know if I ever remember. I actually remember you coming to one of my classes to talk about art.
Mm-hmm.
And
yeah,
it wasn't.
I did do that. Mm-hmm.
I remember that one pretty well, but I don't remember talking about any funeral stuff. Do you, Holly?
No, I don't remember funeral stuff at all. I also remember you came to talk about art.
And reading, right?
And reading, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
There was like a specific week at school that was like, I don't even know what they were trying to focus on, but you did come and talk about art. I do also remember in second grade, my teacher asked what our parents do, and I told them that my dad was a cremationist, and he thought that you worked in a factory making cream. So I don't think he would have appreciated it.
Okay. So in answer to the question, no. Because no one has ever asked me to actually go to youth and speak regarding the funeral industry. I've done plenty of courses for college students, but for grade school, no. I've never done that. And it's interesting because when we got ready to open the first crematory that we had, our accountant said, "Oh, that's cool. What kind of ice cream are you going to make?" And I said,
"Yeah."
And I said, "Burnt ash."
Yeah, there you go.
And then he realized that we were talking about a crematory, not a creamery. So, but no, in answer to your question, Annie, thanks for the question. I have never, and I don't know if it's because teachers would recognize what I do for a living and they don't want to bring that into the classroom because they don't want to bridge that gap without the parents' permission about me talking about death to their children. So I don't know if that's probably part of the reason why, but I always wanted to. And I'll tell you one thing I did do is when I went to visit my twin brother in one of his elementary classes. Yeah, we had a robust discussion. And I don't think he even intended for that to happen. But they asked what I did, and I told them, and we talked about mummification, and we went the full gamut.
Wow.
So it was good.
I love it. There was, I think, Holly's response was probably a little more tactful than mine was to my third grade class.
Is this the answer you mentioned to us at dinner one night?
I think it probably is.
Okay, give us your response. What was it you said?
Well, I believe our teacher was, hopefully she's okay with me, Mrs. Masterson, I believe.
Yeah.
Such a good teacher. Shout out, hello, if you're listening. But we're going around saying what our parents did, and I said, my dad harvests dead bodies.
Mm-hmm.
I said that to the class.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think at the dinner table, I think you, Holly, and it's true because at the time I was on a harvest team. So, and I think that you at dinner time one time had mentioned, yeah, right now I think my dad's taking someone's head off. So, that does happen, or it did happen, But yeah, for you to say that at that young age, I looked at Lisa, and fictitious Lisa, and I looked at her and I said, maybe we need to cut back a little bit on our conversation at dinner.
My dad's probably chopping someone's head off.
Oh my goodness.
But it's okay. He gets paid for it.
Totally legal. It's legal.
And just explain, off of that, harvesting bodies, you mean like harvesting organs for science, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
For
it was
research
always
purposes.
for research, not for transplant.
Here's a question from Marianne, and this is just kind of a broad one, but she says, have you heard of the new mushroom caskets?
No, I have not. I haven't even heard of a mushroom casket. And I'm just wondering, do they want someone to eat their way out if they come alive and be hallucinating that they're actually not buried? I'm just trying to figure out, how do you make a casket out of mushrooms?
Yeah,
seriously,
apparently.
I've never heard of that before. I'll have to research that. And Marianne, if that's true, I would really like to I'd be interested in reading it, because there's got to be a way of reinforcing it. I'm just wondering how involved the mushroom truly is. If it's just on the sides where there's no pressure, or if it's just on top. I don't think the entire casket could be made of mushrooms, but that is interesting. It wouldn't be surprising because of things we've talked about in the past, as far as caskets with, the aquamation, the terramation, stuff like that. I can see why they would maybe move towards mushrooms, but I'm not really sure. Actually, I am sure. I have never heard of that. I'll have to research that. Have you guys heard of it? Before this question, have you guys heard of a mushroom casket?
I have not.
Scott?
Also, no. Today was the first time when she mentioned it to me, and the background that she gave was that they do it for, I guess it helps. Maybe it's like a greener option, I think, and it maybe helps with.
Is that like the terramation that we talked about before?
Yeah, and I think she said that the statistic on it was that it could decompose in a matter of about 45 days. Which honestly is pretty good. I mean,
well, that's the casket, but what about the body?
She did also say that they mixed, or at least what her understanding is, that they would have some other compound that would aid in the decomposition of the individual as well. Which is so interesting. And she also said that she wants her casket to be made out of psychedelic mushrooms. So there you go.
And again, I think that's only if she wakes up and wants to try and get out of the casket, that she can be, happy while she digs her way out. Oh my gosh.
So anyway, look into that a little bit, and I'm curious to see what you think, Dad, and I'll even ask. I can go over it again, and we can maybe get some more details from Marianne.
So in the next episode, Holly, remind me. I'll research it and then just kind of give an update on the mushroom casket.
Sure thing. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Thanks for the question. I appreciate questions that make me either think or research something, because truly, as of right now, I have never, ever heard of a mushroom casket.
Yeah. So maybe it might be the next big thing.
Might be.
Okay. The next question that we have for you is, and I feel like we've already talked about this one. I can't remember if we have on the podcast or if this was a separate conversation that happened outside of the podcast. But this question is, what is the legality of a Viking funeral?
Viking meaning that there's a pyre set on water?
Yeah.
Is that what you're envisioning as far as a Viking funeral?
Yes.
Okay. Because there are other things that are involved with Viking funerals, but the culminating aspect is the pyre with the individual on it and then pushed out into either a lake or ocean, right? Okay. So the legalities are that each state that has a large body of water can either give permits that would allow that to happen. And right now, in my mind, Colorado might. I know they have open pyres that they allow to have happen, which is I would love to see one, truthfully. And that's just me. But So you can place the individual on top of those sticks and then light the individual on fire, and that becomes an open pyre. And you just keep the wood going with the fire until the body is completely consumed. So in this instance, you're actually building something on a floatable device that would allow an individual to continue being consumed by fire while being pushed out into an open area of water. And in most cases, it becomes the sea. And so there are permits that do allow open pyre cremation on open waters. I don't know what the costs are. I don't know all the ins and outs. I just know that they are available. So in answer to your question, I would say yes, it is available and can be done. The legalities, they have to be legal because they are happening. The only problem that they have, and this is the green side again, is that once the fire goes out, the main concern is the individual being brought back to shore. So if the individual is not totally consumed, then there has to be some way for the container or the floating device that the person is on for it to eventually start to break away and break down so that the person goes into the water as opposed to coming back from the water. So, yeah, the legalities is just making sure that the container, ship, whatever the case is adequate enough to get him out or her out, but then leaving them out. Not that it's going to stay structurally sound to bring the individual back.
Maybe if it was made of mushrooms.
Maybe.
Algae, seaweed, whatever. Yeah, it all works. Oh my gosh, Holly. Maybe. Anyway, that would be my answer to that one. It doesn't happen too often because not everyone knows about that or that it can happen and that it is a possibility. So yeah, open air pyres are becoming, at least what I've read and seen on video, in Colorado, I think that's the only state right now that does the open air pyre. But there are places I believe in Florida and California that will allow the Viking style pyre.
That's very interesting. I will go ahead and say that the person that asked that was the same person who asked if a person can be buried vertically. So maybe.
Way to go, Tyler.
Yeah, see, maybe he can be the first of both.
I'm done standing. Take me out to the water. Those are good questions, though. It's stuff that not many would ever really think about.
Yeah, and they're kind of fun to consider because I think I would like to see one of those as well, especially if the way that they lit it. And I feel like this would just be, well, it's possible, obviously, but if somebody shot a burning arrow at it from the shore, wouldn't that be so cool?
That would be cool. Actually, maybe that's how they do it. I don't know.
Again, Tyler, let us know when that happens, and we'll be there. We'll be there for you. So.
What would be fun is if we took a family outing, went to Colorado, and actually saw how they do the terramation, and then in the same trip took time to go up to the hillside and see how they do the open air pyre.
I want to know if anyone else has ever thought that would be a fun family vacation. Nope. Just stars.
It's 6 stars.
All right. Oh, yeah, well, I said just ours.
Just ours.
Yeah, just ours.
Hey, we got to put our vacations up and put stars by there. 6 stars, 8 stars, 10 stars. Wow.
It was great.
It was great.
You got to see the terramation. Here's another question from Bridget. She asks, does a body, and I think we could have already touched on this. If so, that's fine. We can go over it again. Does a body weigh more, less, or the same after the embalming process?
Okay, so I don't know scientifically how to answer that question, except I can tell you the process that happens, and then you can decide in your own mind what you think happens. So I think, truthfully, that they take on additional weight. And I'll tell you why. Because when you're doing the embalming process, we've talked about before, the human body has a closed vascular system. And so what you're essentially doing is pushing a chemical into the body, opening up the vein, and then allowing that blood or whatever else might be in the vein structure to exit the body. So at the same time, you're putting in and removing fluid or moisture, blood in this case. And so when that process takes place, the embalming fluid is actually designed to go into the tissue and stay. So when you're removing the blood, so is it 1-for-1 removal? I don't know, because blood, what do they say? Blood is thicker than water. So blood is heavier than water. And so blood will eventually always stay in the body. There's no way of completely dismantling the body of all of its blood fluid. So you want to turn around and say, okay, so in this instance, the question, Bridget, is the body lighter, heavier, or does it stay the same? I would say that the body stays or gets heavier because remember, all the blood does not exit the body. You're now placing a chemical in the body, which is designed to stay in the body. And so I think you're adding chemical on top of fluid that's already there. And so it would have to be heavier. Not a lot, maybe 1 total pound. But yeah, I would say that the individual ends up being heavier, not necessarily lighter.
Very
Do you think that answers that question?
I think so. And I think that stands to reason. I guess if you kind of reason through it, then I actually didn't know that. I guess when I thought of the embalming process, do you remove blood though?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
But it's not, I guess it would make sense that it's not all of it.
No. If you really want to have your eyes opened and you want to do a Google search, put in the search parameters, how many miles of vascular system does a normal human body have? You'll be surprised. And you cannot, because of the amount of vascular system, you could not get everything out. There's no way. Unless you go to like what's called Body Worlds. Have you ever seen Body Worlds? You remember going to those, you guys, when you were younger? You don't, Scott? Are you blocking all this stuff out? So anyway, they use what's called a plastique, and instead of embalming fluids, and it allows them to mold the body into certain athletic shapes. And oh my gosh, one of the most amazing things that I've ever seen with regards to the human body. So
I do remember you wanting to go back there at some point, you mentioning that to us. So
yep.
If they ever do a tour.
Yep. If they ever comes back here, I'll go, but yeah, I'm not going to go actively search it out. I'm not a Body World groupie.
You kind of are by profession.
Okay.
All right. Do we have time for one more?
Sure.
All right. So this next one, they said this question is from an interested coffer. and then they did correct it later to coffiner. Okay. in the text message.
All right.
So here it is. And I think I understand this correctly as I'm reading it. They ask if my parents have a funeral plan in another state, but they have moved here to my state. Let's just say, how does that work? Payment, services, what does that look like?
Okay. So great question, because now we're going to talk about end of life services that are offered on a national scale. So number one is a pre-need. A pre-need is something like, say, for instance, if someone came into the facility that I manage, you come into the facility and you say, we'd like to set up a pre-need for my wife and I so that we have plans made for when we pass away. Okay, that's great. So the pre-need is handled by the establishment that they come into using the pricing that has been established by that funeral home. So if that family dies in the interim there within the next couple of years by that funeral home, they still use that funeral home, that price is locked in and guaranteed by that funeral home. That's a pre-need. That is what's the benefit of a pre-need. If a person dies in another state but has a plan with me, then that funeral home that they choose to use in the other state can contact me and say, hey, I understand this family has a pre-need with you. Would you mind transferring it to our facility? And I would say, of course I can. We'll do that. So we transfer the funds over. But at that case, since they aren't the ones that initially started the pre-need, that funeral home only gets the cash amount. So it becomes a payment towards whatever funeral services they choose to have in that other state. Do you see the difference? It becomes a cash payment.
Okay.
So let's say, for instance, they come into my facility and they pay $5,000 for their plan. So they die in another state, but the other state's plan is $7,200. Okay, you have a $5,000 cash down payment. That means you have to come up with $2,200 more to accommodate the other funeral home. But if they died in my area and today's cost came to $7,200, it remains at $5,000 because they took time to be trustworthy and faithful to me. So I would keep their pricing right at what they originally wrote the plan for. Okay. Now, there's another one final one, and this is the third option. That's a burial insurance. So a burial insurance, people can take out, and they can, I think the policies are for $10,000 or $5,000, $10,000, $15,000, $20,000, $25,000. And those are truly what they say. They're insurance policies, but it's designed to handle the burial or the final disposition of the loved one. So it doesn't matter where you go in the nation. If you're an avid traveler, then that is a life insurance policy or a burial insurance policy that would then be used to help you pay for the funeral of your choice through whichever mortuary you wanted. So there's pre-need, there's a transferability of the pre-need, and then there's a burial insurance. So either way, any way that it would happen, if a family member passed away in another state, but they had a plan elsewhere, it's movable. It just may not cover everything that you want to have happen at that funeral.
Okay. So essentially you create a pre-need in one state, but you pass away in another. You don't necessarily have to gather that person and go back to where the first, just go to another funeral home. They will transfer. It's almost like a down payment at that point.
That's correct. Unless they want to be buried in the location where the initial pre-need was planned. And then all you're really doing is paying a funeral home to prepare them and get them to the other state.
Okay. Very nice. I hope that answered the question for our interested coffer. And
Coffer. All right. I love it. Well, we'll stick with coffiner, but coffer I love.
Yeah, that's good. Holly, did you have any reactions to these? I think this could be a good spot to transfer over.
No, I think they're great questions. I'm excited to hear the rest. But right now, we will jump to a story from one of our dedicated coffers that sent it in to us.
Coffers. Oh, that's
and funny. I'd love to get your guys' reaction. So let me just jump into that. Okay, so she starts by saying, "Hi. Thank you all for allowing stories like mine to be told. I began taking care of my mother 4 years ago. She was in a slow and gradual mental decline. I would take the time necessary to allow her to openly talk about her past and the memories that meant the most to her. When I began watching over my mother, she was 82 years old. My mom loved to be with me and my children, her grandchildren. One of my favorite memories that I have about my mother is her ability to see and tell things the way they actually are. On one particular day, we went to the mall. She loved to shop and people watch. My kids and I were in our favorite store, but my mom wanted to stay out and sit on a bench and wait for us to finish. When my children and I came out of the store, we were surprised by someone agitated speaking with my mother. I was embarrassed once again by my mother. She had this knack of taking a small earwax bulb filled with water into different places and situations. She would slowly and methodically spray some water onto the groin area of their pants, dresses, whatever, and whoever would take the time to sit next to her. when it was realized what she had done, she would let them know that their pants were wet and would then proceed to tell them that she knew where the restroom was if they needed to use it. She would she would play dumb, which would only escalate the situation. She would always close the argument with, "You think a lady that is," she would announce her age at that time, "could do this?"
What?
Needless to say, we would have to whisk her away from the situation. Each time we would visit the mall, the earwax bulb would ultimately be filled at least 4 times, always creating chaos, confusion, and dismay. It became very difficult as the years continued to roll forth. The visits to the mall became less frequent. She found a lotion that she fell in love with and absolutely enjoyed with daily use. The odor was penetrating and would linger with everything that she would come into contact with. Daily, as I would come home, I would find her rubbing her grandchildren's feet and hands, always with the lotion. Nightly, toward the end of her life, she would look at me, peering into my eyes, and would try to talk with me. It was a struggle for her to express her feelings through words, eventually taking hold of either of my pinky fingers, and would just hold them tight as though she was hoping that her feelings and love could be portrayed to me through the slight or firm way that my fingers were held. My mom passed away 5 years after officially living with me. It was a very sad time for our family. 13 months after her passing, I was returning home after dropping the children at their prospective schools. I was very tired and remembered thinking, I'm just 2 minutes from home, I can make it. I was feeling overly depressed thinking about my mother and her passing. Not 10 seconds later, I was almost hit by another car. Trying to avoid the collision, I swerved, and before I knew what happened, I slammed into a pole, which caused the airbags to deploy. I woke up about 30 minutes later. My seatbelt was so tight that I felt like I couldn't breathe. I noticed that there was smoke arising around the car. I struggled, fearing for my life. I began to think of my children and feared leaving them motherless. I started to cry and looked for something to cut the belt when what seemed like suddenly the belt became loose. With that little freedom, I willed myself out of the car. I was out of the car, moving slowly. I was scared due to pain that I was experiencing when I heard an inner voice tell me to keep moving from the car. I made it as far as I thought I could. There was tremendous pain coming from my leg and right elbow. I was so bewildered I couldn't understand where I was. I heard a pop and looked down toward where the car had stopped, only to see the car begin to be engulfed in a slow-moving fire. I thought, oh no, my children are in the car. I heard an external voice audible, as if I was talking to someone standing next to me. In my dazed state, I saw a shadowy figure leaning over me. The individual pushed hair from my face, then grabbed both my pinky fingers and placed both of her hands along the side of my face. It was at this moment when I smelled it, the lotion my mother loved. I spoke out loud, "Mom?" Without any verbal communication, my pinky fingers were caressed and then clutched with a stern yet loving grip. My left kneecap was fractured and my right elbow popped out of socket. I didn't care. I was never so happy to have experienced what I did. The smoke from the car caused someone to finally call the fire department. I received the help that I needed. The car was a total loss. My mom was there to offer help and comfort, though. Thank you, Mom. And then she just goes on to say, this podcast has helped me to find the courage necessary to share this experience. Thank you for the format and willingness to allow people like me to share. Keep up the great work in sharing your experiences. Please let me know when the items become available. Thank you all. And that's from Sylvia.
Wow. Any comment on that one? What do you think of that one, Scott?
I love it. I think that's so cool. And it's, I love that she says, thanks for allowing, me to have the confidence. But you hear so many people that have experiences like this of one kind or another and a lot of the times it is with someone that they were extremely close with, like a parent, or maybe a sibling. But I think it's just very cool to know that as she was thinking about her mom was probably very aware of her as well and was able to be right there. And it seems like she maybe also intervened slightly, because wasn't it her thought like, oh, my kids are in the car, but she was the only one in the car.
Right.
So maybe without that, she would have struggled to get back and she would have been even more injured. And so I think that was maybe her mom's way of saying, hey, you don't need to go back there, kind of thing. Stick right here. So I think that's really cool.
I think with this story, the thing that catches my attention the most and probably almost brings a tear to my eye is the ear bulb. No, I'm kidding you. Not the ear.
The water.
The water on someone's groin. Oh boy. Wow.
Frank.
But no, towards the end of her life, the way that she was communicating was the grasping of the pinkies and holding them tight. And then to have her receive that final confirmation that it was in fact her mother there by doing the exact same thing that she was doing just prior to her own passing, letting her realize, hey, just don't worry, this is me. And so who else would know that?
Right.
That was happening and taking place. And then to actually after an acknowledgement of yelling mom, realizing that she was no longer there. It's quite a touching story to me. Holly?
Yes.
What about you?
No, I think it's really touching. I think, honestly, yeah, just echoing what you both have said, it's really a sweet story, especially because you just cherish, I imagine, you cherish those moments at the end of a parent's life where even if they can't communicate very well, you still know what they're trying to say by the actions that they're taking. And then for that to be almost preparation in a sense for her to say, or her mother to be thinking, okay, I'm not going to be able to communicate with you, but this was one way that we still talked, is you knew I loved you when this was happening. And then she got that in one of the scariest times of her life, I'm sure.
Mm-hmm.
So that is really sweet.
I think the other interesting for me is, and you guys know that my sense of smell is gone, but it's interesting to me too that she would mention that not immediately, but throughout that course of interaction, that odor came back. And to have, you can be in a certain area or a certain spot, think and smell of something and think automatically be transported someplace else. And I think that is exactly what was transferring here, is that when she felt the finger squeeze, and then prior to that, actually smelling that lotion that she became so enthralled with or loved, she said in her story, that she knew immediately, even just from the smell of the lotion, that it was probably her mother. Mm-hmm. And yeah, I just like that. And it's interesting. I don't know that I don't know anything else about that other than the fact that I guess odors would play important roles. I've had a lady just this past week saying she's going to gut her entire bathroom that her father used because every time she walked in there, it reminded her of him. And I just thought, why would you do that? I mean, why would you destroy the bathroom? If you say you're so close to your father, why would you destroy the bathroom that held the scent? Because apparently he loved Brute, the aftershave Brute. Why would you destroy that odor, thus destroying the memory of him? You see what I'm saying? So I don't know. It's weird. I guess odors can affect everyone differently. And so it's very interesting that would happen with her. I'm glad she shared it. Thank you, Sylvia.
Yeah, and I'm sure, just going off of that, like if you are actively grieving, I'm sure it's really painful to smell that or to be reminded constantly of that person that you lost.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, what a comforting thing to come in a time where you're unsure and you're not feeling very good or happy.
Great story. Thank you.
Scott, any final thoughts on that story?
I don't think so. I think that's very good. And I guess just the thing to comment, very similar to what Frank said. I guess if she had come, if her mother had appeared and had done something else, then she might not have recognized it right away. But it was the pinkies and it was the smell. And so I think the memory is more than sometimes we give it credit for. And we think, oh, I only remember a few things about him, or I try to remember more, but maybe you don't have to. It was the small little things that can really, that is exactly what her mom chose to do to connect immediately with her daughter again. So if you ever think that, oh, these small memories, I wish I had more, maybe it's enough.
Yeah. Good point. All right. I don't have anything more. Holly, what about you?
I don't have a single thing more. So I guess we will just close it off there. Scott, thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, Scott.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. I will say the questions that we did not get to, if you did not hear the question that you submitted, it will be done in a future episode. And we do want more of them. If you know one of us personally, text us or
DM us or whatever. What is the
yeah, you know that. You know the phrase DM?
I hear you say it every week, Holly. I'm not sure what it means, but
I'm just really impressed. If you want to send us a direct message on Instagram, wink. Did you get that, Dad?
I got it. Thank you.
Or send us an email for longer stories at letsbefrank@coffintalkin.com, and we will talk with you next week.
Bye, coffiners.